Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is October 30th, and I'm going to share my screen somehow. It decides to show me how to. There you go. So this is the IC Topic Chats for today, October 30th. We are on Halloween Eve, so I guess it's All Hallows Eve Eve. Uh, I don't know, could be. Last year, we did the session actually on Halloween the day. It's Thursday, October 31st, 2024. we are I thought it would be fun to do it again because I thought this was a neat little topic on a spooktacular special. I live in Edwardsville, Illinois, which is often abbreviated as Eville, Illinois. So we kind of take it pretty seriously here. Um, but the Evil, Illinois, we actually have the at least self-reported. I don't know if anybody's ever done the check on this, but we self-report as the um, largest parade on Halloween in the country, but I don't know that anybody actually knows which is the largest. But we also have colors in our school for that are orange and black. So I've never completely connected whether that was intentional or not, but we like to go with it anyway. So we love Edwardsville loves Halloween, so we like to have fun with it. Um, but today we're going to be talking about client horror stories, things that have happened. I'm repeating three from last year, and I've got three new ones that have occurred this year. I'm going to discuss my horror story, and then I'm going to discuss what we did about it, or well, didn't do about it, and where we ended up, and we are currently with the situation if it's still ongoing, and as a way of suggesting what perhaps you might find yourself in this situation sometime in the future, and what you may want to think about doing. And then I'll follow up with some of the 6.5 or 5.5 big ideas. Let's go ahead and think about this. So first, we've got the case of the superstitious seance program meetings. So in the pandemic, one of the great things that happened was we all learned how to use Zoom. And one of the wonderful things about that was we were able to connect more clearly with our clients, the clients who were in different universities, for us anyway, because we do a lot of work and also in school districts all across the country. And so they would come to oftentimes they were at home and they would come to their meetings and we would all be able to connect. But a couple years after that, maybe around 2025 this year, for sure, people have started having meetings together in person, which is wonderful for them, but they forget to invite the evaluator. And so what we found was we had to like seance our way in to try and understand what was going on, or they would forget to invite us, or they'd invite us at the last minute. Or as I heard yesterday from one of my colleagues, they have this meeting where they put you on the big screen. It's on this kind of like 72-inch monitor television, and they sit way far at the end of the table because your face is so big. And so we've got this situation. I guess the resolution to this is just to be very clear and consistent with your need to be a part of meetings. Make sure that you set up a timeline of activity and how often you want to be involved. And if they're going to have meetings and they're going to, ghost you or whatever, you need to be very consistent with your follow-up, and make sure that you're able to get the data or the connect around the type of data that you need to collect with your clients, particularly if you're working remotely from wherever they're located. Hypothetically, if they're local to you, you should get in the car and go spend some time with them. That's actually a great way, and that's something we talked about with marketing recently. That one of the best ways and we talked about it last week. It's a great way to connect with your clients for future work. All right, let's go on to the next one. Now we're going to talk about the case of the decapitated principal investigator. This is a situation where your principal investigator writes the grant, or you have a grant writer and perhaps in our situation with universities, a dean or someone who's just motivated to get this grant. And then what happens is they write this grant and perhaps it's not funded, or it takes 6 months or longer for it to get funded. And then you find yourself in a situation where the grant gets funded, but the principal investigator is no longer there. And then you've got this new principal investigator or program lead who is now taken over the situation. We've had this several times, or we've had this where you've gotten 2 or 3 years into a 5-year program, and well, the person retires, or they decide to take a different university job at that university, or they just up and move to a different part of the country. And so you end up with this actually happens frequently where the by the end of the grant, the only people who were there at the beginning of the grant, well, is me or one of the Goshen Consulting staff members. And so the way to do this is to make sure you're doing a lot of documentation, make sure that you understand their grant, because we're oftentimes explaining their grant to them because they weren't there when it was originally written. Make sure you understand what your contract says so that there's not changing of the contract and that you can explain that. But it's probably a very good idea at the very beginning when you have a new principal investigator is to take or even sometimes an entire program team, take some time to just revisit how you understand the grant, explain it to them, ask them the questions. I mean, you don't want to baby them if they do understand it, but try and gauge their understanding for their own program so that you understand what you're getting yourself into, but you're also setting kind of good boundaries and direction for what you're going to be expected to do. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. The case of the missing contract. This is a new one. We've got another old one, but I put this one here. Recently, actually, this has happened to us a couple of times. When we write a proposal with a client, with a university, what frequently happens is a university reaches out to us and they say, we want to go after this grant with perhaps the National Science Foundation or the U.S. Department of Education. And they ask us if we would like to assist in that grant writing process by writing a program evaluation section. So one of the first things we do is we kind of set out how we're going to do this by creating a memorandum of understanding. And in that MOU, we say, it sounds like University ABC wants to write this grant to the National Science Foundation to do this wonderful thing that will do wonderful things for students or teachers or their community. We will contribute our services. We will put together a budget. Actually, the university will identify a budget that makes sense within this range. Perhaps we're talking $25,000 to $35,000, and we sign off at it, and it lists out what we will do in this proposal and proposal phase of the program. So what happens is, again, we go 3, 6, 9 months later, the grant gets funded, and then they'll send us the letter that they received from the organization, the National Science Foundation, perhaps, and we review it, and then we will send them a contract, or we'll ask for them to send us a contract. We'll put in our statement of work, sign off on it, and then we'll get to work, and then we'll start invoicing, and everything's swell. In this situation, and it's happened a couple of times, we get to the point of asking for a contract, and they'll say, oh, we don't need a contract. We have an MOU in place, right? The answer is, well, that's nice, but that doesn't really cover what's going to be happening, particularly around when we intend to invoice, protection of intellectual property, the fact that we're a contractor. I mean, there's a lot of protections a university should want from us. But anyway, in this situation, we have to be clear and consistent with the need for a contract because honestly, they should want one to protect their own interests, but it's also nice and it's important for us because we want to protect our interests. The most important interest is that we're going to do work and we're going to get paid for our work on a schedule that's listed out in the contract. So, but this has happened a couple of times and it continues to surprise me when it does because I think, why wouldn't you want a contract? I think it's because the principal investigator doesn't understand how their university works or their organization works, and they want to find a way to get this done fast. If you send me an invoice, I'll pay you, is what they're thinking. But we do need to make sure we cover our bases. All right. The case of the fiscal phantom. This is a situation where you send out your invoice and nothing. It just kind of goes away. You continue to ask and ask for the invoice to be paid. I'm going to pull up my notes here. I want to make sure I see this one. All right. The the invoices go unpaid. And so with this situation, we send an invoice and then nobody responds. And then we send a follow-up and nobody responds. And we get increasingly more, I guess, business appropriate, I guess the way to put it, but to be more insistent on getting paid. So when we don't get paid, obviously that's the crux of the business, is making sure that we get paid so that we can afford our staff and we can afford our operation and we can go about our business. So usually within our contracts, most of our contracts have an what happens when an invoice goes unpaid. We will we actually have never done this, but we have after 60 days, we start to we put an interest rate in there of 1.5% per month, and we actually will stop work after 60 days. We haven't received payment as well, and that's actually been pretty helpful. And the other thing is, and Emily's here today, we have a process where we do follow-ups, and the follow-ups happen 1 month after the invoice has gone out. Technically, when an invoice is sent, it's due upon receipt. We expect payment within 30 days, and after 30 days, we send a nice note, and after 45 days, we send another follow-up nice note. After sometime in that period of time, I usually get involved and I start sending more insistent notes and I start asking for phone calls. And so that's how we go about it. Frankly, we've never had a problem with invoices going unpaid for very long, with exception to the next case. And that's why I put these together. The case of the disappearing university. We literally had a situation with this whole craziness in 2025 where there was an institution that was already kind of on the brink of going out of business, and they voted in April to just close their doors in the middle of the summer. And they had an NSF grant, they had a PI in place, a principal investigator in place, they had a contract with us, and we arranged, we knew that they were going to close down. They said, we're going to close up our operations with you too. We'll do these things. We'll file these reports. We'll, just like there was a lot of contracts being canceled for other reasons related to the federal government. This one had no problems. This was perfectly fine. But the university shut down and they just literally ghosted us. And so we are still in the circumstance of being ghosted. And so it's not a large amount. And we actually aren't surprised that it hasn't gotten paid because I don't know if there's anybody there to do it. We've gone to collections. This is an interesting experience for me because I've never gone through collections, but we're in the process of finding out if that'll ever get paid. Frankly, I don't think it ever will. And if it does get paid, we do end up owing quite a big percentage to the collections agency. It's not over 50%. I think it's 30 to 40% that would go to the collections agency, but I guess something is better than nothing. But we did have a university just up and close and just completely, totally ghosted us. So we'll see how this goes. There may be more to this story at some point. Speaking of stories that never end, we have the case of the zombie audit. So we as a organization, we're very, very fortunate to receive a grant from the Department of Defense to support our program, STEM Camp, which you can see over my right shoulder over here is pictures of some students involved with that. STEM Camp went for 4 years and it officially finished on September 15th, 2024. So over a year ago, we immediately filed all of our final invoices, all of our final reports, and we knew we needed to do an audit. So we did a single audit. We did 2 single audits. I won't go into the details of what that means, but it definitely involves accountants looking through everything and asking you lots of questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions about how money was spent. And we did everything right. Some of it was confusing, but we did it all right. We submitted these 2 single audits to the federal government, and we thought everything was fine. We were just waiting for it to be closed. We got follow-up communications from the Department of Defense in February saying, oh, we need this other report. Oh, in March, oh, we forgot we need this other report that you didn't file. Fine. All right, is this going to get closed? And then come along mid-May, we got the note, oh, we just found out you were a for-profit business. And I was like, yeah, how did you not figure that out? You've been paying me for 4.5 years. So they said you never needed to do a single audit. And this is truly a nightmare because they said you need to do this whole different audit through this whole different organization that we didn't even know existed, that is designed for places like Boeing and other large um, government contractors that are for-profit organizations. And mind you, we got a grant. We didn't get a contract. It doesn't matter. And it became a real nightmare. It took about 6 weeks of time, a lot of time on the part of our office manager and a consultant to help us with it. I heard from them actually last week because they were still trying to close out this grant. We ended up submitting a whole new document, Excel spreadsheets of things that didn't make it sense to half of us. Um, but I heard from them, hey, we're trying to close this out. We need this document that we submitted to them last March. And so this zombie audit continues to go on. I guess what we've learned out of this situation is keep very, very good financial records, particularly when you're working with federal funds that are coming from a direct federal source. Um, I don't worry. We definitely keep good records for everything, but I don't worry about it as much when I'm the subcontractor or I'm the sub to a subcontractor or something like that, because the chances of that coming back to haunt you is less probable. It is always a possibility. You'll see that a lot of documents and contracts that you sign will say you need to be following certain federal rules, Office of Management and budget rules, perhaps FAR clauses and things like that. And we do all that. But when I'm working with funds directly from the federal government that I know could and likely will be audited, we do a very, very good job. We have our accounting set up within QuickBooks to have its own special sections, which Emily can probably post a little bit more about that in the chat if you're interested. But whenever people have come back and asked for more, we've had really great records. So having great accounting records is super important when you're dealing with large dollars of money directly from a federal source. And we were able to figure out all that crazy zombie audit stuff because we did a good job and we had good consultants supporting us. So 5.5 pieces of advice for you to avoid getting spooked. When you're working with your clients, set those expectations and your boundaries as well. We hear that a lot lately, very clearly with your clients so that they understand what's going on. When you have a changeover in a client, or if you have a university that up and disappears, you have documentation to share that, hey, you are owed money, or you are going to collect data in such and such a way, or you're not going to do X, Y, and Z that some new PI thinks you should be doing that. Documentation, I think I've said that word many, many times. Remaining professional is super important. You may feel emotional, but you need to put that emotion aside and make sure that that doesn't cloud your judgment, doesn't get in the way of what you're trying to do. We're here for a reason, to seek help from one another, to learn from one another. So these IC topic chats are wonderful ways to make connections. Aside from this group, obviously, a lot of you guys may know about the masterminds groups. A lot of us will be joining together in 2 weeks to be a part of the AEA annual conference in Kansas City, Missouri. So hopefully you're there. But reach out to your colleagues when you have questions. That's what we're all there for one another. Prepare for the unexpected. That's why we have good documentation. Number two, don't be worried whether things are going to be hard. They will be hard. So you just need to be prepared for that. You need to understand that these challenges are going to come along, and you need to find out. You just need to plan to work through the unexpected, because it's going to happen. And don't be afraid to fire your client if you find yourself in a situation where your clients are more trouble than they're worth at a certain point. We're probably not thinking about that so much in this time. We're trying to keep our clients, but sometimes the clients do need to go. So we do have some upcoming sessions. This was today's, the holiday special for Halloween. Next week, we're going to be doing time tracking, perhaps with Jesse, perhaps not really sure. We will be at the conference, or some of us will be at the conference in 2 weeks. Becky Garrow, she'll be doing her frequently asked questions. We'll have another holiday break for at least the US based Thanksgiving. And you know what they call Thanksgiving and on at least on November 27th in Canada, they call it Thursday because they don't celebrate it. But I think they know that. But it's always funny to me that it seems like the world shuts down, but it doesn't. It just shuts down for us in the United States. We're going to go do KPIs and we'll do a evaluator view, kind of like a, a topic with a group of people to discuss in a panel session on December 11th. And I didn't put it on here, but we are going to meet on December 18th. I originally was going to try and do Meet the Pros, but we're not going to do Meet the Pros this time. It just isn't coming together and is partially, probably mostly my fault for not trying to put it together. So we will do it again next year, but we're going to do on December 18th. We'll end up doing another session that to be determined. I've got some ideas. I think we'll have some fun with it, but we will not be doing the Meet the Pros this year. All right. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I want to catch up with your comments in the chat here. And so for all those folks who are out there in YouTube land, we'll see you later. And for those of you guys that are here, stick around.